You're watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Asanov, and let's see the top stories for today. U.S. stock markets face steepest drop since 2020 after Trump tariffs take effect. South Korea's political crisis persists as the Constitutional Court upholds Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment. Azerbaijan's capital Baku hosts 11th ministerial meeting of the Southern Gas Corridor Advisory Council and the 3rd ministerial meeting of the Green Energy Advisory Council. Global markets are in turmoil after U.S. President Donald Trump announced sweeping new tariffs. The decision has triggered a sharp sell-off in stocks worldwide, with major indexes suffering their worst losses since COVID-19 in 2020. As global leaders respond with threats of retaliation, analysts warn of rising inflation and the risk of an all-out trade war.
The US dollar and stocks have tumbled, with investors rushing to safe haven assets after President Donald Trump's new tariffs have sent shockwaves through global financial markets. The measures were far more severe than investors anticipated. They include a 10% baseline tariff on all US imports, with some countries facing duties as high as 54%. The markets had already been volatile amid trade concerns. In mid-March, the S&P 500 entered a correction, dropping 10% from a recent high. After Thursday's sharp decline, the index is now down 11% from its February peak. The S&P 500 suffered its worst single-day loss in nearly 5 years, tumbling 4.8% and erasing $2 trillion in value. The Dow Jones fell 4%, while the Nasdaq plunged 6%. Analysts caution that unless countermeasures such as tax cuts are introduced, the tariffs could heighten the risk of a U.S. recession.
The announcements last night just added more uncertainty and are dragging it out. The risk of that is that we are seeing businesses and consumers really on pause. This economy was in good shape without this uncertainty. So we know we have a stable base, but as businesses and consumers pause, we could get a self-fulfilling slowdown. We even could eventually get a recession if businesses in particular feel they can't make investment decisions.
President Trump defended his decision, saying the tariffs would revitalize American manufacturing and generate massive revenues.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is. We have $6 or $7 trillion coming into our country, and we've never seen anything like it. The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal? They've taken advantage of us for many, many years. For many years, we've been at the wrong side of the ball, and I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be unbelievable.
But global leaders strongly disagree. French President Emmanuel Macron has called on European companies to reconsider their investment strategies in the US. Meanwhile, China and the European Union have also vowed retaliation. In response, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced a 25% tariff on US vehicle imports. This has already been felt across industries. Auto giant Stellantis has announced it will halt production at plants in Mexico and Canada, leading to temporary layoffs for 900 US workers. With the 5th of April deadline for the tariffs approaching, President Trump has hinted at possible negotiations. Speaking aboard Air Force One, he suggested that the US might reconsider tariffs in exchange for favorable trade deals.
It depends. If somebody said that we're going to give you something that's so phenomenal, as long as they're giving us something that's good. For instance, with TikTok as an example, we have a situation with TikTok where China will probably say, we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate. Always have. I've used them very well in the first administration, as you saw, but now we're taking it to a whole new level because it's a worldwide situation.
The World Trade Organization warns that the new tax hikes could shrink global trade by 1% this year. Experts say it could also lead to a slowdown in US consumer spending, which is one of the key drivers of global economic growth.
New sweeping U.S. tariffs aimed at protecting domestic industries have unexpectedly hit several tiny, often overlooked nations. Countries with minimal trade volumes but now facing major economic consequences. As Washington sharpens its trade tools, critics argue that these measures are indiscriminate and disproportionately harmful to vulnerable economies. To discuss this, I'm joined by Cüneyt Dirican, Associate Professor at Istanbul Arel University. Mr. Dirican, welcome to the program.
Welcome, everyone. Hi.
Hi. Mr. Dirican, some of the hardest hit by these new U.S. tariffs are tiny economies like Eswatini, Bhutan, and the Solomon Islands, countries with limited capacity to retaliate or absorb such shocks. What kind of long-term damage could these tariffs inflict on their already fragile economic systems?
Let me say first that these countries, similar to those countries as well, are trying to compete with low wages and also lowering their currency value, which we call it currency wars as well as trade wars. So it means that in the short run and also in the long run, they will not be longer profitable. So they cannot easily compete against United States in the first rank. So technology could come in the first rank and will gain importance, I can say, because in order to compete, you have to invest heavily in the technology, because you cannot compete in the long run with low wages, with human workforce, and lowering your currency. So you have to have new patents, new brands, as well as new technologies in order to lower your cost and in order to compete with these markets. So this is the first thing I can say. The second one, the Far East, including China, as well as Bangladesh, Vietnam, etc., that type of countries or those countries are in general producing textile. So when you go to, for example, US, when you enter to a shop, to a textile, for example, shop, when you look to the ticket, you will see their names on the etiquette. So the textile industry will be hit also in the first rank, as well as with the car industry. So Turkey, Egypt, which are heavily producing also textile, with their new tariffs, which is lower than those countries, will gain importance together with Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. I can say in summary like that, but I can say on the other hand, Mr. Trump started a war, a financial war with the world. So when you start fighting, you don't count the punches. So it will have a huge effect on the markets, as well as we are expecting also a recession together with inflation. But at the end, Mr. Trump believes that he will fight all other countries and he will gain this fight. So when we look at the numbers, for example, the expectations for the recession on US economy will be approximately 100 billion United States dollars on the growth of on the GDP of the United States economy. But when you compare with $28 trillion GDP of US, it means nothing, but it means a lot for other countries. But if we have time, I want to try to also explain the logic behind it. But if we have time.
Mr. Dirican, given the negligible threat these nations pose to the United States industries, is there a broader strategy behind including them in the tariff sweep?
Yeah, obviously and exactly. Let me clarify the picture like this. Mr. Trump declares yesterday new American economic model with macroprudential measures. And it is we are just at the beginning, and it is the beginning of a new era since since President Nixon in 1971 and Smithsonian Agreement, where the story had begun with issuing unlimited US Treasury debt bills. Now globalism stops, This is the declaration of the stopping of globalism and starting protectionism. So the protectionism starts. The logic or the reason behind it, the trade and budget deficit and government debts of United States are not sustainable based on the projection of their National Budget Bureau or office. So that's why the Department of Government Efficiency exists with Elon Musk initiatives. And on the other hand, United States is funding itself from the Nixon period by issuing Fed dollar bills, which means Fed dollar banknotes, and by their treasury bills. And also that type of issuing, that type of bills are also the main cause of the problem. So because at the end, Mr. Trump sees that despite of doing everything on the financial side and on the trade side, they have inflation as well as other economic problems like jobless ratio, etc., in the United States economy. So in order to stop that, he started the financial war. So because of that, we are seeing now the tariffs. And he puts in the first rank to its rivals, China and Japan, as well as the European Union, which he claims that they are stealing from us. So he started this war for that type of reasons. So he wants to build his costs on the inflation, on the trade war, on the trade deficit, and also in the budget deficits. He wants to build all of these costs to everyone, to Mr. Zelensky, to car makers, to wine producers, to Mexico, to Greenland, everywhere. So it is a part of the global financial war, I think. So, and we are starting newly. Okay, this is just the start.
Mr. Dirjan, thank you very much for speaking to A News. We appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you very much. South Korea's Constitutional Court has removed President Yoon Suk-yeol from office following his controversial martial law declaration 4 months ago. The court's unanimous ruling comes after more than 3 months of political turmoil and impeachment proceedings.
There were celebrations outside South Korea's Constitutional Court after a unanimous ruling to remove President Yoon Suk-yeol from office on Friday. It's 4 months after his controversial declaration of martial law that sparked political turmoil in the country. There were also tears from his supporters, who sat motionless after the ruling. The unanimous ruling follows more than 3 months after the opposition-controlled National Assembly voted to impeach Yoon. Yoon's martial law declaration and impeachment have deeply divided the nation, and experts warn that protests may intensify. On December the 3rd last year, Yoon declared martial law, deploying hundreds of soldiers and police officers to the National Assembly. He argued he was maintaining order, but some military and police officials have testified that they were ordered to prevent lawmakers from voting on his decree. Despite the attempt, they managed to hold a vote, unanimously rejecting Yoon's decree. 10 days later, on December the 14th, the National Assembly impeached Yoon, accusing him of violating the constitution, suppressing legislative activities, attempting to detain politicians, and threatening the nation's peace. South Korea must now hold a national election within the next 2 months for a new president. Early surveys show Lee Jae-myung, leader of the main opposition Democratic Party, as the frontrunner. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will continue to serve as acting president until the new president is inaugurated.
A Russian drone attack has hit several multi-story apartment blocks in Kharkiv Thursday night, killing 4 people and injuring 35, according to local officials. Ukraine's second-largest city has been subject to nearly nightly attacks in the last week, including an hour-long barrage Wednesday night. There were also drone attacks targeting Dnipro and the Zaporizhia region, injuring at least a dozen people. Turkey and the European Union are taking concrete steps to revitalize and strengthen their economic partnership. After a 6-year pause, high-level economic dialogue has resumed, signaling a potential new chapter in relations between Ankara and Brussels. Turkey and the European Union have reached a consensus on deepening economic ties and expanding cooperation across all sectors. That's according to the Turkish Finance Minister Mehmet Şimşek. The breakthrough came during the first high-level economic dialogue meeting in 6 years, held in Brussels. Key topics on the agenda included the long-awaited modernization of the customs union and steps toward visa facilitation, both major points of contention and negotiation in Turkey-EU relations for years. A joint statement called the meeting a significant step toward deepening bilateral ties. Officials exchanged views on recent economic policy developments in both Turkey and the EU, especially within the context of global economic uncertainty. The discussions also touched on the European Union's recent competitiveness initiatives as well as Turkey's ongoing structural reforms under its economic reform program for 2025 to 2027, aimed at boosting productivity and long-term growth. Both parties agreed to hold the next round of high-level economic dialogue in Turkey. Today is the International Day for Mine Awareness and Assistance in Mine Action, highlighting the ongoing need for international cooperation and support to address the enduring threat posed by landmines.
Landmines are silent traps hidden in the ground, widely used during conflicts due to their low cost, ease of deployment, and long-lasting impact. To raise awareness about their dangers, the International Day for Mine Awareness and Assistance in Mine Action is observed every year on April 4th. This day highlights ongoing efforts to clear mines and assist victims, emphasizing the need for global cooperation in addressing this threat. The threat posed by landmines is severe and ongoing, with over 100 million people worldwide at risk. The United Nations Mine Action Service, UNMAS, has spent over 20 years addressing the needs of communities affected by explosive hazards, focusing on the safety of civilians, peacekeepers, and humanitarians. Its work includes mine clearance, risk education, and support for affected populations. Every year, thousands of people around the world fall victim to landmines. According to the United Nations, one person is either killed or injured by these devices every hour, with children being particularly at risk. This highlights the persistent danger landmines pose to civilians, even long after conflicts have ended. Azerbaijan, deeply affected by landmines due to the Karabakh conflict, is one of the countries that actively raise awareness about this issue. Since the conflict began, approximately 4,000 people have fallen victim to landmines. Even after the conflict ended in 2020, over 380 people have lost their lives due to landmines, underlining the ongoing risk. The country is still in the process of clearing landmines from its territory, and experts suggest it could take decades to complete this task. In addition to the human toll, landmines also have significant environmental consequences. Landmines make land and resources inaccessible, causing overuse of remaining areas and soil degradation. They also harm biodiversity by triggering explosions or leaking chemicals into soil and water. Efforts observed on International Mine Awareness Day have led to greater global focus and resources dedicated to mine action, saving lives and restoring communities. However, continued international collaboration is necessary to address widespread contamination. Sustained funding, technical expertise and cooperation are critical to ensuring the safety of affected populations and completing demining efforts.
Azerbaijan's expanding influence in securing Europe's energy future is taking center stage. Baku is welcoming to the 11th ministerial meeting of the Southern Gas Corridor Advisory Council and the 3rd ministerial meeting of the Green Energy Advisory Council. Representatives from around 24 countries, along with numerous international financial institutions and energy companies, are participating in discussions on trading green energy and exploring new partnerships.
45 billion cubic meters. That's how much Azerbaijani gas has flowed to Europe through Trans-Adriatic pipeline. But today in Baku, it's not just about numbers. Ministers, financiers and energy giants from 24 countries are gathering here to discuss what comes next, not just for the Southern Gas Corridor, but for the continent's green future.
Distinguished ministers, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to welcome you to the 11th ministerial meeting of the Southern Gas Corridor Advisory Council. Initiated by Azerbaijan and supported by European Commission, this important gathering played a crucial role in elaborating approaches to energy security, addressing the issues of energy security, and coordinating our joint efforts. And today, while we had a family photo procedure, I said that we will need probably more space for that because the team is growing, and this is a very good sign of our cooperation. The more time passes, the more countries and companies are involved in the process, united with a common goal. First, to strengthen cooperation, because without cooperation, none of the energy security projects would be possible. And second, to provide energy security for themselves, for their neighbors, and for the partners. And I think the very positive spirit of partnership and cooperation which unites us is a clear demonstration of our responsibility. Responsibility of producers, transitors, and consumers. And of course, the balance of interests between the three major actors of this process, with the support of international financial institutions, made our story or stories as success stories. Countries, their governments, investors, companies, leading international financial institutions. So this is our team, and the team is growing.
Speaking exclusively to A News, the general manager of the Trans-Anatolian natural gas pipeline in Turkey, Selçuk Düzyol, told our colleague Fikret Dolukanov that they are ready to scale up to delivering 31 billion cubic meters annually without laying a single new pipe. When asked whether there is further potential to expand the Southern Gas Corridor from both the Turkish and European sides, Düzyol said that rising demand and strategic cooperation could pave the way for even greater capacity and connectivity in the region.
Actually, we have designed our pipeline for 31 billion cubic meters per annum, although we have invested only for 16 billion cubic meters for the moment in the first two phases. But we are quite optimistic about the expansion of our network. Of course, it is not only dependent on TANAP, but also the other pipelines on the corridor. We have to heavily invest together in this project. We have a big potential, especially the ongoing developments in Europe and the rest of the world. I think there will be a gas demand, especially for countries in the Southeast Europe, for additional volumes of gas, exportable gas from Azerbaijan. If the investment decision is taken, I mean, today, it takes some 4 to 5 years to make the gas available for European gas markets, additional gas available. Actually, we have already gone through some engineering studies for our part, for TANAP. We have made a kind of a pre-FEED study for various scenarios, for various expansion scenarios. Actually, at TANAP, initially we have kept the pipe diameter big. I mean, it's 56-inch pipeline, so easily it can be expanded up to 31 billion cubic meters, as I told you. By adding some new units to the existing compressor stations and by investing in new compressor stations, we can easily achieve this target without making any investment at all at pipeline. So this is more or less what we are now today. Actually, after the Ukrainian war within Russia, I mean, Russian gas supplies to Europe is not continuing. So many countries, especially in the Southeast Europe, are demanding additional volumes of pipe gas because they have no access to LNG. For the Western Europe, it's not a big deal, I mean, to access this LNG, but for countries in the Southeast Europe, I think Azerbaijan is a very good alternative of gas supplier, as a gas supplier, and I think this Southern Gas Corridor may pave the way for additional gas supplies to those countries who are really in need. That's all, yeah.
Thank you. What about expansion to the east for more sources of gas?
Of course, there are also promising gas fields to the further east of Azerbaijan, like Turkmenistan and other countries. I mean, as of today, I mean, we are already receiving some Turkmen gas through Iranian corridor, but in future years, I mean, we can easily have also access to Turkmen gas if we can make this Trans-Caspian pipeline. I mean, as long as the gas demand is strong, especially in big markets, big consuming markets like Europe, I think this new corridor will also be opened up sooner or later.
Joining me now to break down the significance of these meetings and what they signal for the region's energy landscape is Kostis Georgopoulos, Director of Energy, Climate Policy and Security at NE Global Media. Mr. Georgopoulos, welcome to the program and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm actually joining you from in Bucharest, where I'm active for the Black Sea Energy Week.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing the
Mr. Georgopoulos, the Southern Gas Corridor has long been positioned as a cornerstone of European energy diversification. Coming out of the 11th ministerial meeting in Baku, what new commitments or shifts in strategy have emerged, particularly in the context of Europe's evolving energy security needs?
There's been a lot of discussion about expanding the gas corridor. And I think that this is also been very instrumental in that sense because all the parties involved and also the ministers attending as well as the European Commissioner have said that it's very important for the European Union to expand the energy corridor. And also we've seen that, as I mentioned, I'm here in Bucharest at this time during the Black Sea conference, but also, I just flew in from Greece, and I mean, in the Balkans, especially, it already has the South Gas Corridor and TANAP and TAP have contributed considerably for the energy security of the region, but it can also expand more to countries in Southern Europe, more even in the neighborhood. For example, we've seen that Moldova was very reliant on Russian gas, and it's also looking to boost its energy security. So there's been a lot of discussion on that front, and I think that Azerbaijan has been a key player for energy and key supplier to Europe, and with the potential of expanding other fields or in developing. Besides Sardinies, also developing up Sharon, there's a lot of potential to increase volumes and contribute to European energy security, as the commissioner said, who's actually also now in Baku. Another thing I wanted to mention is the fact that today is also taking place the Green Energy Advisory Council. and that's also very key, important. Again, being here in Romania, they've been discussing on a more technical level during this week. The State Secretary of Romania was here, of Energy, he was here, and they're discussing the technical details of the Caspian, Black Sea, Europe cable. And as you know, Azerbaijan is looking to tap into its potential of renewable energy in the Caspian Sea, and also develop, its wind and solar sources. The project still has to be financially viable, and but there's been already starting studies and looking at the feasibility of the project to carry electricity to Europe, and also in that respect enhancing energy security too.
Mr. Geropoulos, thank you very much for talking to A News. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The historic Central Asia-European Union Summit is underway in Samarkand, bringing together leaders from the region and top EU representatives for the first time. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen outlined key areas of cooperation with Central Asia. Our correspondent Fariza Kalumurzina has the details.
The summit focuses on strengthening ties between Central Asia and the European Union. One of the main priorities is developing transport corridors, and the European Union is ready to finance projects, including the Trans-Caspian roads, to help with trade. Last year, traffic along the Trans-Caspian International Transport Road rose by 62%, reaching 4.5 million tons. The goal is to reach 10 million tons by 2027. Another key area of focus is critical raw materials. The European Union plans to invest in Central Asia's mining and processing industries, while also providing training for specialists. Green energy is also a priority. The European Union will continue supporting clean energy projects and expanding access to high-speed satellite internet in Central Asia. President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, noted in his speech that over the past 7 years, trade turnover between Central Asia and the European Union has increased fourfold, reaching 54 billion euros. Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev emphasized the importance of strengthening trade and economic ties. He also highlighted Kazakhstan's readiness to boost exports of 175 products valued at over $2 billion to the European Union, and encouraged European companies to use the Astana International Financial Center as a platform for investment. Energy cooperation was another important topic. Kazakhstan continues to be a key supplier of oil to Europe, accounting for about 13% of European Union's oil imports. Tokayev also pointed out that Kazakhstan produces 19 of the 33 critical raw materials the European Union relies on, including uranium, titanium, and copper. He also proposed creating a regional rare earth metals research center in Astana to support businesses and investors. Following the summit, the Samarkand Declaration is expected to be signed, establishing Central Asia and the European Union as strategic partners. It was also proposed that such summits be held every 2 years. We will continue to follow the news from Samarkand and provide you with detailed updates in our evening newscasts.
Kyrgyzstan continues to strengthen ties with Europe. During a visit to Uzbekistan, President Sadir Japarov held talks with the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa. They discussed expanding trade and investment cooperation, as well as exploring opportunities for joint infrastructure projects. The two sides exchanged views on potential joint projects, particularly in the areas of hydropower development and transport infrastructure. Japarov says Kyrgyzstan is eager to boost bilateral trade volumes and aims to increase exports of environmentally friendly products and rare earth metals to EU countries. President Costa reaffirmed the EU's commitment to supporting Kyrgyzstan in its efforts to adapt to global challenges. In our previous context, we discussed the role of Trump tariffs for different countries and the possibilities for Europe to overcome this obstacle. Richard Spooner, member of the advisory board at the Caspian Policy Center, says the EU is exploring ties with countries in Central Asia and with Turkey.
I've been reading what people are speculating about these tariffs could lead to. Seems like there could be a certain degree of chaos. I'm not really sure. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But I believe that, for instance, Europe could see greater importance for developing trade with Central Asia, with the South Caucasus, perhaps with Turkey. Perhaps a hub could be developing where the European Union, which has had a complicated political relationship with Turkey, could see Turkey as a very good facilitator for expanding its economic activity in Central Asia, given the ties that Turkey has with Central Asia, the common Turkic heritage, and simply the strength of the Turkish economy.
Iran and Afghanistan are planning to open new consulates in each other's countries to strengthen diplomatic ties and boost bilateral trade. Meanwhile, the Taliban are seeking improved relations with the Trump administration. The spokesperson for Afghanistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs told A News that they hope to open a new chapter in U.S.-Taliban relations. Tamim Bahiz has more from Kabul.
The governor of South Khorasan province in Iran has announced ongoing efforts to establish an Iranian consulate in Farah province of Afghanistan, along with an Afghan consulate in Birjan, Iran. This initiative aims to strengthen trade and economic relations between the two neighboring nations. The governor emphasized that these consulates would not only enhance bilateral ties, but also foster cooperation in various sectors. The proposed consulates are expected to simplify administrative processes, facilitate cross-border movements, and boost regional commerce. Meanwhile, CNN reports that the Taliban has ramped up its efforts to win favor with the Trump administration, seemingly seeing an opportunity to re-establish official ties and a presence in the United States. The Taliban has proposed opening an office in the U.S. to address issues related to the Afghan community, suggesting it could be located outside of Washington and would not necessarily serve as an embassy. Additionally, the group has floated the idea of the U.S. recognizing its rule as Afghanistan's legitimate government. Speaking to A News, Afghanistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Abdul Kahar Balkhi stated that Afghanistan seeks a positive working relationship with the U.S. based on mutual understanding. He also expressed hope that the Trump administration would open a new chapter in U.S.-Afghanistan relations. The Taliban has secured diplomatic postings worldwide, deploying representatives to staff them. While no country has formally recognized the group as Afghanistan's legitimate government, it has made notable diplomatic inroads. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
That's all we have for now. Stay tuned for more updates.